So the place that I'm going to be talking about is a little cemetery called Terra Vista Cemetery. The cemetery is located in Tinkers Creek, which is located near Valley View, Ohio. This happened to me years ago when I was much younger, much less into the occult, much less educated. It was terrifying for me then. I still am terrified of this location now, though I would love to go back, most likely in the daytime. I went at night. Don't do that unless you do all of your research. Do your research first, paranormal people. I never used to do research and came across some not so great situations, whether it was paranormal or just crime central, or it was just a dangerous location in general. Always do your research. Always, always, always. I did not do that prior to this little trip. I went with a friend of mine. It was dusk, about to be dark, and let's just say the stories I found out after, I should have really read those first. We went, again, at dusk, and we got there, and you park, and then you walk up the big hill. What I didn't know prior to going, again, did not know prior to going, I'm emphasizing that because I'm going to share it with you first, so you have the idea of going into this story, so you're not completely blind to what is actually happening. I did not realize that there were numerous stories of crazy dark energies and witches and all sorts of crazy things that happen on this hill. Apparently, the cemetery itself is allegedly in the shape of a pentagram. I didn't pay too much attention to that. I did notice that it was weirdly shaped, and I did see there was a lot of damage to the cemetery graves that were there, which, big no-no. I never mess with cemetery graves. Bad juju. Don't do it. I didn't know that. I also didn't realize that there were tons of videos of EVPs, sightings, and history lessons on the internet that I should have watched, one of which explained a story of witches in a house across the street that allegedly had a suicide pact and killed themselves, and they're the ones haunting the grounds, to things like children being heard laughing and giggling on the hill. I did not get to hear any children. Would have been thankful if it was kids. There was a voodoo doll located on this hill week after I went. I was told that by a friend who took a picture. I do not have the pictures anymore. I do not have anything to back up anything I'm saying right now, other than there's plenty of stories on the internet, so please, 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 please look them up. Terra Vista Cemetery. They're on YouTube as well. We got there, walked up the hill, immediately walked up to the hill, and there was the cemetery itself. At which point, side note, sidebar, I'm an empath. So energy is always something I'm prone to feeling, and I am usually pretty good at figuring things out very quickly when I go to locations as to whether I should be at this location, investigating this location, and what I can do to protect myself from this location. In this case, I walk up to the cemetery, which was super uber creepy, and I had this horrible vibe. Horrible. It was one of those things where you just feel sick, like you shouldn't be there. Something tells you inside that you really shouldn't be there. I made this known to my friend that I was with, who said, "Stop being a big baby." I completely agreed with that statement and brushed it off as nothing and decided that we should continue on with our little tour. It was getting darker, more spooky. You know where this is going. So, we get to the top of another hill. Meanwhile, walking up that hill, I kept checking behind me. You know that feeling that somebody's watching you? Or there's someone behind you? That's the feeling that I had. There was definitely an eerie feeling of somebody watching, somebody behind me. Kept brushing off my back. You know, the classic. Felt like a presence was there. I, again, ignored this. Should have taken this as my warning, but I did not. We continued. I begged my friend to let me walk back to the car, which my friend willingly allowed at this point. We started walking to the car where there was woods on this side of us as we were walking down the hill to go back to our car. And there was suddenly this noise, this scurrying in the woods. Naturally, the friend that I was with pulls out a knife, as he was a man and thought that he could handle whatever was going to jump out of the woods. First of all, I'm not entirely sure what you were going to do if this was a bear. We do have those here. Anyway, after the strange scurrying noise, we started walking, and I started feeling more ill and more on edge, as if I really should not have been at this location. And it was out of nowhere in my left ear, Okay, I say left because I want you all to know what I'm feeling at this moment. I'm feeling sick, I'm feeling uneasy, I feel like I don't belong, and out of nowhere in my left ear, it sounds as though there's a woman standing directly next to me, screaming at the top of her lungs. At which point, the gentleman that I was with looked at me and said, "That was just a cat." I don't know what kind of demonic cats you're listening to, but a woman screaming and a cat hissing are two separate things. And it also sounded like, again, it was directly in my ear. In my ear. So next to me. At which point I take off running. Because I'm young and dumb and not educated on the paranormal, so I take off running thinking that that's going to solve all of my problems. At which point I then tumble down a hill, almost break my arm, and I come home to my mother, who is wanting to know what on earth happened to me. I thought all was fine and over with and done and great and super. But there's more to the story. It doesn't stop with me going home and going to bed. No, of course not. Why would it stop there? It gets creepier. For 2 weeks, I could not sleep in my room. I felt a presence in my room every time I would go to sleep. I noticed a shadow out of the corner of my eye. It appeared to be a female, and it stayed in my room for 2 weeks. I was mortified. Horrified. Imagine being young teenager, you're just exploring your creepy side, just want a good scare, and this is what happens to you. Something follows you home. Many of you who know the paranormal know that that is very possible and that can happen and things can follow you home. Again, be very careful and do your research before you get involved. Just a disclaimer for everybody to do your research. I don't care really if you do or don't, but share your stories if you do. If anybody's ever been to Terra Vista, leave your information down below in the comments. Share your story with me, or a paranormal story if you feel like it. I have plenty, and I will be sharing many of them on my story. So that's the end of my Terra Vista story that terrified me as a young child, and the creepy lady who followed me for 2 weeks after. Eventually she did go away, and I have not seen her since. I also have not been to Terra Vista since. Like I said, if I ever go again, I would most certainly be going during the day. But anyway, super creeps, I'll leave it at that, and that's my first story to start off this channel. Uber super creepy. And thanks for listening, thanks for watching, and I'll see you again. Bye, super creeps!